Openly or subtly?
Openly.
Right.
Throwing things from cars.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah,
That kind of
place.
Wow. As a woman, you walk down the streets and you might not feel safe, especially if it's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
If you are dressed a certain way, you're expressing yourself a certain way, and you're walking down the street and it's a dark alleyway and there's no lights, it's like the list doesn't end.
But if you're trying to say, like, I'm trying to be an ally, it's just I don't really know how.
Yeah. Before we start, thank you so very much for listening. You cannot imagine how great it is to have you all here. Most of you have already subscribed. If you haven't yet, please do us a favor and click that button. It helps us to make more of this podcast. Now, let's dive right into the episode.
I'm glad you exist.
If I can.
So can you. That might be treasure.
Marvellous.
Welcome back. Season 2. A season too soon. Series 2. Season? Series?
Season. I think I called it season. I think it's season 2.
But that only implies 4.
Does it?
4 seasons in a year. We're not here.
We do it more of the milking the seasons until we can no longer, I guess.
Season milk. My favourite.
Seasonal milk.
Seasonal milk. And it is season 2. And what better thing to start off with?
Well, actually, before we start anything, any learnings from season 1? Any particular favourites? Any interesting feedback?
First off, a big love, because we learned some wonderful insights into the people who listen to us. They are our peers, and also some of them really quite peery, without outing anyone.
It is up to them.
I'm not going to tell people about our viewing.
No. The viewers of the podcast.
Our viewers, yeah. Viewers, 0. Listeners, wow.
A few more.
Yeah.
Quite a few more. Actually, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening to the nonsense that just falls out of our faces. You're waiting for gold, you'll be waiting a long time. Yeah, lessons that we learned from
2 microphones.
Yeah,
2 microphones. That's a good start.
More of your voice, Alex.
Apparently so, yes.
Was a big feedback. More of Alex.
Exciting. Scary. But hey, 2 microphones should make it easier to have my voice heard on the same level rather than sitting awfully in the background, so that's helpful.
People want to hear what you have to say.
Apparently.
Well, I'm one of them. Other important takeaways for season 1. Just lovely to see the range, because we have a listener in Africa. So first off, hello.
Yes.
We have listeners across the globe. And it's really honouring, because you don't think, you skim a pebble across the river and you don't expect it to come back with something nice. You don't expect it to come back at all. You throw a stone into a river, that's it. But we got to see ripples. And I like ripples. And in this example, ripples are good.
We started doing this hoping that somebody would listen, and it turns out people do listen.
One of the most gratifying things from season 1 was the feedback of a number of people saying, I'll try and take that into my own life. I will try and listen to that, and hopefully in the times of need when I have it, I'll turn back to that, and hopefully it'll help me. So thank you both. People saying thank you because we'd made a thing. That is, I could drink that all day. That was super nice.
It apparently was also quite thought-provoking, or giving some ideas, and I think you had the feedback of it sometimes feeling a little bit intrusive almost, because we're quite open and honest about things.
Somebody who's going to hear this podcast because they're a follower said that it was just like, it's a conversation between 2 friends, and it made me sometimes feel it was a bit intrusive because you were speaking your hearts, and I'm like, well, yeah, how do you find out more about the human experience if it doesn't come from that place of truth? Because if you're listening to something fake, I don't know about you, but there's so many things that you see on social media that you think, no, that's a setup. I don't want to see that. And that was really nice, having somebody have that kind of care and consideration for us, just speaking and being true about each other. Because that's where the majority of learning comes from, because it's not staged. We don't stage this. I mean,
we have a rough idea of what we want to talk about.
Oh yeah, we have that conversation, so that we're not just going, well, actually, I read in this thing.
But how we get there is very much it develops as this podcast is being recorded, really.
It's a truly organic process.
Yeah, well, didn't want to say organic. It's so
I
marketing.
know, that sounds staged, doesn't it? It's totally organic. You can find this podcast in the health food section. Vitamin A and T.
A&T.
Alex.
Oh, of course.
You need more podcast.
Yes.
Anyway.
So now that we have the learnings,
Yeah, we learned
and we are doing season 2,
so we're talking about allyship.
that's the one.
Something that is very dear to our hearts and something that we are staunch on. Something that foundation of a lot of our friendships is allyship.
Quite.
Well, allyship is when you give thought and learning to communities that you're not part of. So allyship for me is when I try and make sure that if I'm around a table and there is a conversation being had, that I think of all the people who aren't represented in that conversation. Oh, let's think about an event. We're going to think about going out for a night. Cool. So if you've got a group of friends, some of the considerations that you might have about going out for a night might be, do some of them drink? Some of them not. That's a consideration. You might also think the kind of music, because different people from different places like different sorts of music. So you might want to think about going to a number of different places based on the music that they present. Or if you're all friends for similar reasons, you might all like the same music. If you're lucky enough for that, brilliant, one club will do. There's also considerations around accessibility. So if you want to make sure that all your friends can be there, if you're fortunate enough to have a wide plethora of friends that include physical disability, because those are really nice friends too, then you have to figure out accessible venues. And that's how you can actually be an ally, is actually taking in the considerations of that group that you're not part of, taking into those considerations so that everybody can participate in that activity. And these allyship itself can take so many different forms. I'm talking about going out and having a party, but, you know...
You describing it as allyship, to me it sounds more like being considerate.
Yes, because what is allyship if not an extension of politeness? From where I've grown up, politeness is what I knew before I knew allyship.
But what it takes to be polite and considerate and to be an ally to someone else is being self-aware enough and being humble enough to some extent to realize that the world does not revolve around you. And there is other people as well that you might want to take into consideration when making decisions.
Absolutely. Well, it's about making sure that all those people that aren't there, so if you're in a room full of dun, white people, because I was made in a place where I didn't get much cultural diversity. I was very lucky to have friends or have people that were in my even year group of different faiths and different racial backgrounds, so that I could learn about their cultures. So it could actually provoke that kind of learning. Because it made it easier and made me more curious. It actually made me curious to go and explore these things. So I was in a predominantly white background and feeling that I was missing out.
Right.
Because I was seeing things on TV and in movies that all these different people who didn't look like me, which I knew were human, but just they must have had different experiences to me and lived in different places. And it made it exciting to me because when you're in that rural, isolated place, everything becomes normal to you.
Yeah.
Everything, but normal itself is...
But it's interesting you say it makes you curious. Other people get scared of it.
Yes. Well, there's two routes, isn't there?
Yeah.
You can be fearful of things you don't understand, or you can embrace them.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, I loved experiencing new things. Anything that was different, because I myself felt different, so I identified with different things. Because I felt if it was different, maybe it was like me.
It was part of you finding yourself, actually, of exploring the other areas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was me trying to think, you're a kid, you're self-conscious, you know that you're different, you don't know how to express it. So what you do is you go on the quest for looking the words and the ways to express yourself.
Yeah.
And that took me to wonderful places. I went to do charity projects. I went to Costa Rica. I went to Gambia. And I did that a lot for charity, because then I got the buzz of doing it for charity, because I love charity work. I think it's smashing. I think within the UK right now, volunteering is is sacred. I think it's sacred because so much money pumped in by local government or government itself to say that volunteering, great stuff. Because what was it? You got to pay somebody or a couple of people to run something for maybe 30, 40 people to give them essential skills, to give them humanization, to give them the opportunity to come together without that barrier of money. Volunteering, I love it. Passes Alex the book. In it goes.
The book consisting of the list of potential topics to be covered in season 2.
That's the organisation. Organisation probably on A4 with writing only Alex can read.
It's the hieroglyphs of my handwriting. When it really comes to it, even I struggle to decipher the hieroglyphs myself, even though I wrote them. Case in point, when we decided for this topic, we was like, what the hell does that say? I don't know.
Indeed, we did have a fun 5 minutes going, what does that say? I think it says this.
It had a different word next to it that was supposed to be a hint. It didn't help.
But we're on Allyship. And basically, it's making sure that everybody can participate. Allyship is making sure that that voice that isn't necessarily heard is heard. And that when somebody isn't in the room, their interests are heard. If you're lucky enough to hold privileges where you can be in a place where you can influence something, or if you overhear someone saying something isn't very good, that might be taking advantage of special characteristic groups, you have the opportunity to say, that's not all right. Specifically talking about jokes, it's a case of when we normalise bullying and, jokes can be funny, we have a laugh. We have to wonder why we laugh at certain things. It normalises how we treat marginalised people.
Yes.
That's not fun. And eventually the joke's on us because we're less rich for having them in our lives.
So there's an interesting one for me because in my industry that I work in, it is struggling quite a bit with diversity. It's a very white male industry, right? And even women not necessarily have the easiest time in even meetings. And what I find frustrating is how subtle these misogynistic or other horrible words that come to mind here, mindsets come out. If somebody in a work meeting talks over the woman consistently, that is not okay, dude. Let her have her moment in the meeting. It's really difficult sometimes to be that ally when you see it and say like, actually, no, let her finish her sentence, or thank you for your contribution. Can it wait until she has finished her thought? So I know specifically in a work setting what that is like and also how difficult it can be to be an ally.
I find it very interesting what you've just said, only because what I'm thinking now is we've been very lucky to be exposed because actually a lot of allyship depends on the exposure.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Because so many people don't ally with certain groups because they don't really know them, or they might have the anecdotal evidence that says that that group's bad. They might also have experiences which they've projected largely on a group of people. Again, unfortunately, it's the way that the human brain works. It teaches us not to trust things based on negative encounters when we must be the higher person to say, maybe this isn't indicative of a majority.
Yeah.
I remember in training that I got as part of a business course that I was on, it's all right to keep profiles on certain groups because you're building up what the majority of your interactions are going to be like. However, you must never use that profile to go, you're from that group, they behave like that.
Right, yeah.
It must never be used as a definite. It must be like tasting notes. You get on wine. But it's just there to give guidance and not to be like, this isn't mead. Allyship is a journey that can be started right now. From any point. At work, I am part of a fantastic program. It's the Anti-Racism Challenge. We have conversations with colleagues from all different backgrounds, and we talk about different things that we've read or watched. And it's a really insightful chat, and it builds on a lot of different things. So I'm at a point where I'm aware of white fragility.
Right, yeah.
I recognise my own privilege. My allyship journey is in its infancy. Let's be very honest, because as much as I can bandy about these terms, there is so much to learn.
Yeah.
And also, I think the role of an ally is to listen.
That's the critical bit, isn't it?
It is, and not because I used to do, and I'll be really upfront with this because during my allyship, I used to challenge some protected characteristics people about saying, well, what if they're going to say this to you? And kind of expose them to situations because I wanted to see what the defense would be against these points.
Oh, wow, okay.
And that's a horrid thing. I learned what I was doing was horrid. Is actually saying, well, what if they say this? We need to be on top of our game. If I'm going to be an ally to your community, we need to know the answers to these questions. And it's not the place of an ally to test the defenses. It's there to actually listen, take the directive of the group, and do what they can to help. One of the most destructive things I find when trying to advocate allyship is saying, well, I do all these things. I've read this book. I've done this. I've done that. I use the programs.
I would never.
Yes. Can't believe a person would even consider doing that thing. That's a racist. That's a homophobe.
Yeah.
The generalization of people, the thing that we've talked about that isn't a good thing. It's about opening those conversations and saying, you know what? We're going to get things wrong. We're human. We're going to get things wrong. Look at the place. We're going to look at the roads. We're going to get
potholes left, right, and centre.
This emotional potholes, societal potholes.
Deep damage.
We're going to get things wrong. However, I tell you one of the biggest things about allyship, intent. I met a wonderful old lady, and I started explaining because she was asking things about the news, and I forget this one. I've forgotten the context around what I met her. But I was explaining things because she was asking questions around about the gay community. And I explained what different, I think, flags meant. You know, the difference between homosexuality and bisexuality. And she said, oh, well, it takes all sorts to make a world. That was it. That was her saying, I don't really understand those things, but I tell you what, if there's room for me, there's room for everyone. And I think if we had that kind of humility and also that humbleness just to go, I am still that lost person looking for themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm always going to embrace change. I love it. But that's not the same for everyone. And I do not speak for others. This actually brings another point that I was thinking about.
Go, yeah.
So I'll entwine them, I'll plait my thoughts together, which is why even bother being an ally to all these groups, especially when the thing that I've just explained. Cool. In all fairness, what damage does it do to me? None. Brilliant. Everything becomes a little better. If we celebrate the changes, if we celebrate people, if you're an ally to a person, they will feel safe. They won't feel that they need to define or defend themselves in the workplace. So
not just in the workplace, like anywhere.
Yeah,
like even when
life.
you're an ally as a friend, if you go outside going to a restaurant or something, and that person feels safe with you to be themselves and dress the way they want, to express themselves they want, that is invaluable.
That's beautiful. Yeah, you're absolutely right, because you could be that person that when you're being an ally to a certain group, somebody of that group might come up to you and tell you something. They might tell you something wonderful. And that's the sign that you're a good ally to that group.
Yeah, exactly.
And it allows them to be their whole selves around you. And you might be privileged to be invited into conversations around how protected characteristic groups operate and how to be more of an ally.
Yeah.
There's secret information they only hold in their own groups, and that people get invited into, and you get to know the language that's used, you get to know the complications, they talk about their experiences, you get to know how they're thinking and feeling, and that is treasure. That's something you can't force out of a person. You can never force it out of a person. If you're privileged enough to see that, to experience it, that helps you paint a bigger picture about what it is to be human.
What you said about the experiences, I think that's critical. To learn about somebody else's lived experiences. Like, I can never live an experience of a person that is not white, as an example. I'm a white boy, you know what I mean? So, but learning about what it's like to be a different race, or to be a different gender, or to be of a different sexual orientation, and all the long list of characteristics. Only lived experience can actually teach you and educate you and actually build an understanding. Oh, so that's what the world is like for you. And I remember it was actually my former manager, I should say. He listens to this, so hi, Dan. But what he said, he took a class. I think it was yoga. I'm not too sure. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But the beginning of the exercise was to close your eyes and feel safe. And for him, also being a white male person, it brought to him a moment of realizing of his privilege, of why would I not feel safe? Why would I feel any danger? And just the experience of closing your eyes in a room full of people and feeling safe, that was something that is, well, obviously, versus a bunch of other experiences around you, probably not, where as a woman you walk down the streets and you might not feel safe, especially if it's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
If you are dressed a certain way, you're expressing yourself a certain way, and you're walking down the street and it's a dark alleyway and there's no lights, it's like the list doesn't end. But I found that very interesting, quite insightful on his part, to say like, oh, it actually highlighted my own privilege of I've never felt unsafe in the world in that regard. But it's these lived experiences of somebody living a very different experiences out there in the world, just because of reasons, that actually makes them feel unsafe. So allyship, creating that space for, to use this analogy of closing your eyes in a room full of people and feeling safe, create that space of safety for someone else.
Yeah, by giving everybody the time to reflect that there are other people in the room.
Exactly.
Different life experiences. Ultimately, the reason we do allyship is the selfish reason of we like people. People are nice. And when we're really nice to people, wonderful things happen. Allyship is also important because it makes sure that the products or the services that we're giving to others are accurate of all of society, not part of society, which makes big cash money sense. If you desperately need another reason just to be a good human being, money's a good reason. Because also remember that when colleagues are worrying about the safety or how they dress or what they do or what's happening with them, they're worrying about those things.
Yeah.
That doesn't translate into actual productivity at work. By being inclusive, you can actually explore the toolkit within all the people that are part of what you're doing and have everybody who can have a say speaking. And that's brilliant because what you produce is something closer to an experience that everybody can understand, which is beautiful.
Also, if you call yourself a friend and you make someone else stop them from being themselves or feel unsafe in your presence, can you really call yourself a friend? Like, that does not sound like a friend to me.
Yeah, but remember, anybody who's listening to this and going, whoa, oh, actually, I am a friend to that person, this isn't a telling off.
No, it's not. It's more of a have a think.
Yeah. How can you be a better friend?
Ask.
Yeah.
Listen.
How could you be the best friend you could be? I've got a Sesame Street hat on.
This podcast is brought to you by the letter A.
And the letter T.
And T.
The real good stuff is hearing such interesting things. I think what we see in the mirror is one perspective. As I have said on previous podcasts, the truth is but a diamond. Have I said that in others? That's something I say constantly in life.
We had a few things like that, yeah.
We did. You probably edited them out.
Banana sandwich.
Oh, how do we make a recipe on this? Allyship. Swap out the ingredients of anything you do. It's really
Fruit salad.
A different. Yeah, fruit salad is a good one. Yeah.
Or like a bowl with all kinds of different drinks and fruits.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. A fruit salad. So what, considerations. You check that the person eating the fruit isn't allergic to anything.
Good start.
We have to also recognise that tomatoes are fruit. Not putting that in the fruit salad.
No, not really.
Not my cup of tea.
It is my favourite fruit, but not in this fruit salad.
There might be people who do. And it's not the fruit salad for me. But it takes all sorts to make a world. And also, when you're making that fruit salad, you might want to put some more things in. You might want to put papaya. You might want kiwi. You might want starfruit. I haven't seen starfruit in years.
I don't like it.
Oh.
I'm saying this quietly.
Okay. Saw them as a child. They used to be like in my rurally isolated place that I grew up in. It also has a pride. The first time the city has had a pride.
That is amazing.
This year, which I think is brilliant. It's come a long way because, it's a little place and difference was punished. There was very little allyship where I grew up.
Openly or subtly?
Openly.
Right.
Throwing things from cars.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah,
that kind of
place.
Wow.
So to see it grow up in such a way and become a little bit more tolerant of folk that are different, fantastic. Because we have to realise, in saying the sentence, folk that are different, we stand in a very privileged place looking down and saying, you're not like me, when actually We're all different.
Hmm.
And that's what makes us the same.
My town, I don't know if it has a pride yet, but I know that last year it put up a rainbow flag during June at the town centre, I think it was.
Oh.
First time.
Lovely.
Yeah. Also a rural place in Austria, so steps.
Yay.
So even that town that I grew up in shows allyship today.
And that's active allyship. I suppose you put up a flag but do nothing else all year, or do nothing to explain why you've done that.
It's a long conversation.
That's performative allyship.
Yes.
But that's another podcast, isn't it?
That's a long conversation. That will probably go well beyond what we're recording here.
Stay tuned for season 3. And also, going on the metaphor of a fruit bowl, I like to put lemonade in mine.
All right, I'm an orange juice person.
Fine lemonade allows for the flavours of the fruit to come through.
All right, yeah. What about sparkling water to mix it up?
You can't hear me frown. Sparkling, I don't know. I'm not into the taste. However, it takes all sorts to make a world. Just because I don't like something doesn't mean A, it's wrong.
Of course not, no.
And B, others can't enjoy it.
You tried it, it's not for you. Moving on.
So
like, there is no judgment attached to it. I think that's a critical bit for allyship as well.
yeah.
It's not good, it's not bad, it just is, without any judgment attached to it. That, I think, makes for a good ally as well, to be able to say, hey, even though I might internally feel something right immediately, or feeling like I want to judge it, actually, no, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. You
maybe want to talk about the active steps that one can take as an ally, which is A, just being pleasant to people. Remember that allyship, 9/10 of it is intent. So you might have the wrong words, but if you're trying to say, like, look, I'm trying to be an ally, it's just I don't really know how.
Yeah.
And if you're getting to that point of frustration, which is how do you be a better ally, you can ask the group that you're trying to ally to recommend books, or look at YouTube things, or expose yourself to different media and content around that thing that you're trying to ally. When you put your fruit salad together and you've tried it one way, you've tried it another way, you've put different fruit in it, and you start to realize that different fruit from different places, or fruit prepared in different ways, when you've put all that together, just like being an ally, things are nicer.
Makes it richer.
Yes.
You have a lot of different colors, flavors, textures, tastes, just like life.
Yeah, just like life. And I find that allyship is the thing that makes me know and appreciate the other textures, the other things that you make that fruit bowl with. And at the end of the day, if I didn't have it, I'd just have the one fruit. And I wouldn't know the flavors, the textures, and I wouldn't know anything else apart from what I knew. And my life would be blander.
You've been listening to the I'm Glad You Exist. If I can, so can you podcast. If you want more from us, you can find us on all the usual social medias. Like, subscribe, follow us, which is the best thing you can do to help us continue making this podcast. And please, never ever forget, you are loved.